Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 219th iteration of the show, recorded on the 3rd of December 2016, and my name is Josh Trelevin, and I bring to you, well, he's in his own house, but I bring electronically, because I upload this on the internet, I bring you Ryan Kirkby.
Co-host extraordinaire and holiday well-wisher.
Well, it's December, so I guess, we're starting on some holidays. Maybe
we are just
the next one up? I don't know.
The thing is, we're just over 3 weeks away from Christmas.
3 weeks from Christmas, yeah.
21 days is the 3rd, so that'll put us at Christmas Eve. Yeah, just over 3 weeks away from Christmas at the time of this recording. Woo.
Yeah, and by the time I upload it, well, yeah.
It'll definitely be within the 3-week margin.
Be within that, yeah.
So, oh my goodness. How have things been for you this week then, Josh? As the holidays loom ever closer like giants.
Well, I guess I'm not thinking that much about the holidays. I mean, you're asking how I am. I have a cold right now.
I must say you're doing very high functioning for a guy with a cold.
I guess so, yeah.
Usually when I got a cold, it's like you got to put me straight up to the Dayquil, and then my head is basically just like a mucus-filled balloon.
I guess I'll see what happens in the next couple of days, see if it gets worse. I think it's going to get worse. But
I'll get yourself plenty of rest.
Yeah, I've got 2 days off, so it's all good.
Oh, good.
And I don't know. So, life happens, life goes on.
That's good.
We had a birthday party today.
That's right. It wasn't actually the birthday for my daughter, but it was the day for her birthday party, because it's always easier to get people to come, for like a birthday party on like a Saturday as opposed to like a Wednesday for an afternoon. Yeah.
Yep.
I gotta say, this might have been the best birthday party yet, because like there was actually other kids here this time.
Yeah, that helps.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you're 2 years old, how many friends can you really claim to have?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's other people that your parents make you hang out with, and if you get along together, well, that's a bonus.
I mean, in a way, that's kind of the way it is. Friends are just the people you end up kind of hanging out with because you have to go to school and all that thing. But yes, the point being,
well, so this is I
make more meaningful connections when you get older. Yes,
I found it to be a very interesting birthday this year, because it's the first year that my daughter really understood what the whole process was like, and there was a build up to it that she was understanding.
Well, she remembered last year though. Right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. But when she was 3, she didn't have much of a memory for it, and before that, she was barely able to walk on the first birthday. She couldn't even talk on the second one. So this was it shows the accumulation of everything. Because last year's birthday, she was like, oh, hey, now there's stuff for me, and it's hanging down here, from the ceiling, and there's stuff to do here, and everyone's wanting me to do stuff, and they're clapping and applauding when I do things. Yay, it's really nice. But this time around, she had enough experience. She goes, okay, people come in, we have some fun, play some games, then there'll wind up being a cake, and then there's presents after that, and she knew the procedure, I guess, of a standard party, and she was able to really exploit the best out of it that way. That said, she still had a lot of fun, a couple loose balloons and a few other kids, and the games make themselves up, right?
Exactly, yeah. Balloons are great toys for that.
Which is, that's the thing, that's kind of like the main point of what I wanted to mention, because we focus in fiction, and a lot of the fiction we focus on is stuff like, okay, we got to have rules for this, and we got to do that. And it was interesting to watch my daughter and the other kids play, and then they just built a game up around what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, you got to knock the balloon, you got to smack at it this way, and you got to try and punch the balloon here, and you got to do this and that, and it's just well, I won't say it was the most complex rules, and there wasn't really any losers in the game. Everyone was a winner as long as he participated. So it's just really interesting to see how it all built up, and it does make me wonder how if the people that design board games, like Parker Brothers and all that fun stuff, what they have going on, how do they design a game, to create this new stuff? Do they just get here's a bunch of random things just scattered in a bunch of boxes for the kids to play with. The kids just play around for a few hours as the researchers take notes and see what the kids wind up doing as a thing, and then that, and they're pretty cheap. They'll put all that together as a game. We'll just call it this. We'll package it up, sell it off to the masses. So, I mean, these things got to come from somewhere, and kids seem to be a real great source of spontaneous rules generation.
Mm-hmm.
Bada bing, bada boom. But yes, much fun was had, much cake was eaten, and a very tough piñata was eventually beaten up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So much fun had by all. And my daughter even got to really let out some violent impulses in a socially acceptable manner.
By hitting a piñata.
Until it fell out of the roof.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's now a nice small tiny hole up on the ceiling, but that's okay. I don't believe most of our audience will be able to see it. But yeah, I find it interesting though, because like as I said though, like the spontaneous nature of kids and the games was for me the highlight of it. She had an empty box, and it was big enough for her to sit on, so she sat on it, and then she started pretending it was a raft as she's rowing down the river. And it's just like I could see that box. It didn't occur to me to sit on it and pretend I'm on a boat in the river. Like what's wrong with my brain where that didn't spawn up as an immediate option? Is there something crippling my imaginative prowess?
No, on another day it might have, and I'm sure you come up with plenty of creative ideas of uses for things to do with you and Zoe. So it just happened to be this day she was the one who
beat
thought
me
of
to
it.
the punch on that, eh?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's because you're an adult and losing that ability to have fun, although maybe. But
I do enjoy my fun in front of a computer more and more as I get older, I won't lie.
Yeah. I guess it's something you just gotta allow yourself to do from time to time, is just to let yourself be a little creative.
So, would you say, Josh, that the improv lessons you did, back in the day, helped out for stuff like that? If you saw, like, oh, hey, I could use this as an oar, and I could just sit down on this and pretend it's like a little canoe?
I'd say it helped. I don't know if it helped a lot, but I'd say it's a good reminder for adults, and I do recommend it just because it gives you a chance to have fun and play.
The equivalent of some exercise for your brain now.
Yeah, and you just rediscover another avenue of creativity. I mean, there are people do scrapbooking, people do painting or music or whatever, and they can express themselves creatively. That's the thing with an adult, is often we pick sort of established tools, like this is an instrument, I will use it, I'll improvise some jazz or something like that. So they're using a thing that we've culturally developed, and then on top of that they be creative. Whereas a kid is creative, well, I guess
I'm
by
just
necessity.
going to smack these around until they make sounds, and that's going to be my musical instrument.
Yeah, with whatever's at hand, and they don't have the skill to play an instrument unless they're already, some kids learn pretty early, but yeah.
But here's the thing that got me in the end, watching Zoe suddenly realize this is a raft, and I'm going down the river, was when I was getting the food for the party, I was in the car, and I'm listening to a little bit of CBC radio, as I like to do, and it doesn't distract me like some songs do. And they were talking about the Polynesians, and how they were able to row, and use their boats and all that to go to Hawaii and back again. And how things went, and the whole measurement. So the concept of being on a boat should have been fairly forefront in my mind. And so my daughter still managed to think hey, maybe this is a boat before I did. And I was the one who had effectively gotten prepped on this for hey, think about boats. And it's how did you beat me on that one, kiddo?
There's an infinite number of things it could have been, though. That's the other thing. She hit on boat, but that you could have hit on spaceship or, a million other things.
It's a wall to knock over time and again.
Yeah. I guess a box, I guess, sort of conceptually, a box tends to be it feels like when you pick up a box to play with, it may often turn into a mode of transportation. That's pretty common because you can't.
I have put my daughter in several small boxes and then put a string around in the front and then pulled her around like she's in a boat or a plane or Sea-Doo or something.
And boxes by their nature are designed as conveyances, not for humans, or most boxes are not for humans.
Yeah. There's a box of pine for every human in the end, they say.
Ooh, wow, that just got dark. But yeah, like I feel like boxes have, I don't know, platonically, the ideal of the box is that it carries a thing from a place to a place. So yeah, if you can find yourself sitting on a box, you can imagine it as being another version of that. You know, something that carries something from place to place. So it can be a boat, a car, a train, a spaceship.
Maybe a box, and you just pretend you're not a person. You pretend you're something in there, like a toy. Because like my daughter did watch Toy Story recently, so I think so. The concept of like a toy in a package could very well have been in the forefront of her mind, especially when she's unwrapping presents soon.
I think this is like the way sort of intelligence works is that we make connections conceptually, not necessarily just that could be anything, but it's
refresh me if I'm wrong on this, but isn't one part of like the IQ test, like they give you like a bunch of squares, on a sheet of paper, and you have like a set time to design a different thing for what is this? And you got to go through and you got to like work. It's like, okay, this one's a dryer, this one's a washer, this one's a field as seen from above, and then you just keep on going. Like, okay, this is put a thing on top. Okay, now it's like a very squat can of beans that's opened up. And, and then you got to like, and that helps determine like how creative your intelligence is by like, here's the same thing, like what is it, until you run out of time.
Well, I've not seen that particular example, and also I don't think IQ tests tell you that much about an actual
I don't think
person.
It's a standard like numeric IQ test. I think it's one of the multiphasic 8 dimensions of intelligence thing.
But it sounds like a fun activity to do. So
I won't lie. I mean, ever since I heard of it, I mean, sometimes like, I'm bored. What is a square? What is this square? What is a square? And I just test myself, like, come up with something new. Yeah,
and that's another fun, like a method of being creative is like you do something. Okay, this square is a carpet, and then the next activity is to think of something as different from a carpet as you possibly can. Like what is the opposite of a carpet?
It's a piece of toast with the crust cut off.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty opposite from a carpet.
Well, you shouldn't be walking on toast. I'll say that, and that's just kind of the main point of a carpet.
But like maybe it's like something on the ceiling, although that's also technically furniture, but a ceiling vent.
It's a window. You can't see anything outside because there's too much snow. It's
carpets on the floor, so
ceilings on the side.
Or window, So you're always sort of bouncing off of the conceptual idea, and so it's very hard to think of something unrelated to the initial concept.
I wonder how many people are doing like that test or thing where they with the squares and all that, and one person just writes down, just doesn't touch it and goes, "It's just a square, man. It's just a square." It's like, that's all it is, man. You provided with me. I didn't change it. It's just a square. This one does not need modification.
Well, I would say that person is technically wrong.
2 triangles having sex.
Okay, yeah, well, now you're being creative again, so.
Yeah. Start working with other stuff. The wrongest circle I ever drew.
Yeah, like, how about that? Like, what is the worst possible answer you could give to that? The question of what is this square, or what could you turn this square in? What is the absolute, like, what is the answer that they do not want, or they think that you are dumb if you give this answer? Like, what's the worst?
What's the thing? Like, that's why I'd really like to see the measurement criteria for such an examination.
Yeah.
Because it is based on your creative, like, intelligence, how quick and how creative you can be, with your brain.
Yeah, I'm guessing they just count how many things you came up with or something like that. Cause it's
so long as you have an excuse for what it is, you don't have to be the greatest artist in the world to modify it, and just, there you go.
Yeah, and you can't really, like, sort of attack and defend, like, get a panel of experts being like, well, he did a pillow, but he also did a cushion, and pillows are kind of similar to cushions, so we're going to count that as one.
So you just can't do pillow, and just get a bunch of crayons and color them different colors. Exactly, this one's a pink one, this one's an orange one.
Green pillow.
Okay, I can see that being discounted on there. So this is a 7-dimensional, like, trans hypercube as represented in the 2-dimensional plane.
Yeah. Although, like, there's a place for that kind of answer, because I like the creativity of being like, well, I'm going to screw your test. I'm going to, this is my answer. Although what that becomes is it's a very repetitive. So you think of that, that's a great idea. That's one thought, is that, I'm going to just repeat the same thing over and over and over again forever. But then once you actually like get down to doing it, it's like okay, now I'm just drawing another square, and no more thought is going into it, I feel like.
So yeah, I can definitely see why they would knock that off for part of the creativity quotient on your intelligence.
So the bad answer would be anything that indicates.
Or maybe you just get partial marks for it. Like every 4 like a different color of pillows you draw counts as 1, and then there's something about that, like having to come up with all those different colors counts as some level of creativity.
If it's possible to sort of measure the creativity, I would say you'd get a point for every new idea you introduce. So a new idea might be changing the color, so you get a point to change the color. You get another point if you decide that, pillow versus cushion, well, one goes on a couch, one goes on a bed, or something like that. So you get a point for that.
So what if you follow it up with just like a bed for the next one, and you just keep on going until you have like some sort of weird cuboidal existence? It's like, this is a square bed, this is a square pillow, this is my square room upon which I keep my square pillow and square bed. Mm-hmm. And then you just put on, this is my square, like a dresser where I keep my square clothes, and you just start doing work it as a shirt there, and you got like a line there for some really squat pants, and if anyone asks, I'm just a husky dude. So it's like like following up on that theme. Does each one count differently in that one, or is it just like a logical extension of like an intellectual squarism?
Well, I mean, at this point, I feel like we've broken the example because we're like, I think there isn't another way to think. Like for humans, there isn't a way to just generate ideas out of nothing.
Because I won't lie, all you have to do is put like a one line from the middle straight down, and you've got a really husky pair of like shorts or pants, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like all of our ideas, like if you're sat down in the testing room and it's blank walls, white room, like white table, white sheet of paper.
Yeah, maybe we're not doing this in the right area, because I mean, like, I got stuff around us to
yeah, exactly. You have things
from.
that you can sort of prompt on.
Although I suppose anybody with at least a decent imagination should be able to say, okay, I'm taking this test in my house. What's in my house I can base off from? And then your mind just moves it on out. It's like, okay, like I'm going to do this is like put another couple bits over here. And it's just a really crappy car as seen from above. And then you got like Fred Flintstone's old tires, winds up being a square instead of a circle.
So you're generating ideas from your previous life. If you didn't have a previous life, you wouldn't be able to take the test in the first place, because you'd be like, what is language?
I was literally born yesterday. You cloned me and just spat me out of the vat. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so I can draw that. The vat I was spawned in. There's one.
That's actually kind of impressive that you're able to formulate the idea of, I want to recreate that thing over here.
I think it's just a basic part of the human brain. Is you see stuff and you work with that. Like I see Zoe when she's making up stuff, and I can see where she's getting a lot of her ideas from. Mm-hmm. It's just like I guess it's kind of like putting nuclear fuel into like an atomic reactor. Eventually, you're going to hit a critical mass where it's going to seem as though things come up from like nowhere. Like, where's this energy coming from? Where's this creativity coming from? And it's just like you've got so much stuff in your brain now that you've had so much life experience.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Like, okay, she's 4 years old now. She has experienced a lot of stuff.
Over 1,000 days of life.
Yeah. She's lived already, pretty. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to come, but yeah, she's experienced a very broad range of emotions and situations. All 4 seasons down, birthdays, every holiday she's done.
She's getting that in the bag. She knows how it goes.
I mean, she's consciously at this point, consciously experienced every holiday.
Which is very interesting to see how it changes how she reacts with the next one as it comes up, because she's getting the preconceptions. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is what you do. She asked us for the piñata this year, because she remembers like one of the other kids that she went to, like they had a piñata. I want a piñata for my birthday.
Yeah, one of the other kids had it.
Yeah, I think we'll try and get an easier piñata in the following year. I mean, I'll just make it myself out of like some paper mache. That one was hard.
Yeah.
It'll just be an easy like balloon-shaped piñata with some like painted-on colors there, and that's it, man. Just crack that thing till you're done.
You need a piñata that is at least more fragile than the string or rope that it is held up by.
Hey, the string and the rope held up. Zoe just managed to knock it to enough of an angle and kept it spinning that it undid the screw in the ceiling.
Oh, it just unscrewed. Okay. Oh.
So
that too. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's how tough my kid is, man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I suppose in the end, like, we can boil this whole bit, this tangent we went off on and down to, like, if you are having a problem with writing or coming up with a concept or idea, you got to get out there. You got to experience more life.
Mm-hmm.
You just, like, the fuel of imagination in your tank is running low, so you got to go out and fill it up in the world about you.
Yeah, and for me, like, if I ever feel like I don't have an idea, I mean, there are so many, half-finished or thoughts or stuff started on my, in my computer or in notebooks and stuff.
I have a very long list of a lot of things to do should I get around to it.
Go back to that. And although I suppose what happens then is you go to that idea and you're like, oh, I forget where I was going with this, or this feels like it goes to a dead end.
This makes no sense whatsoever. What? I don't. What is it? Maybe no. I don't connect to this thought anymore. It is completely alien to me now.
Yeah, and
which is a weird thought when you think about it. Like, I wrote this down. This meant something enough. This meant enough for me at a point in time. I want to write this down to come back to later, and it means like bobkiss, baby.
Well, what I often encounter is, like, I'm thinking, oh, well, that was a great thought. I like that I had that thought, but I don't have anything to add to it. I feel like it's finished. Which in that case, maybe it's something that should be just a short story, and I should send it out to the universe somehow.
Well, the thing is, like, I recall like doing like a quick concept for a short story with some customers at work. They were talking about, like, nervousness. Like, you know how some people, when they're out in public, they get really nervous whenever they have to interact with somebody? And so the one person was like, I don't know why I'm nervous, whenever I'm here, like, like what's there to really be nervous about? And they're like, oh, what if you, like, make us angry, like, oh, she has angered us, and so I take my false pinky and I just give it a half notch, and that's when the poison comes out as I slowly poison your sub. And everyone was having a laugh, and they started all building on that one. And I think, like, the one lady said she was going to wind up using that as, like, a creative writing idea for her English class.
Nice.
And I told her, like, hey, if this winds up with a weird, like trip to the psychiatrist, like, for the school, you bring the psychiatrist over here, and I will vouch for you that it was a creative endeavor that was not wholly created by, like, her warped thought. This was all just, like, one person taking an idea and rolling with it for another. So yeah, I may have to, answer it to a psychologist at some point in the future as to why, no, this person isn't thinking of poisoning other people. It was just the only reason why you'd ever be afraid of like going out and dealing with people in public. He's got a false pinky, man. He angers me. He's going to put poison all over the stuff I'm trying to buy. Mm-hmm. Which, that sounds like a good short story. I'd read that short story. Yeah. She comes back, and I got to answer to the psychiatrist. Say, okay, but I want to read her story first. Sit down.
Was this a student or a teacher who had a creative writing class?
Apparently it was just a student. I think it was a UFIC student.
Okay.
So, yeah.
University student.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. I got to admit, the older I get, the harder it gets to judge the age of younger people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting bad for that. If you're under 25, things get all scrunky in my head. What are you, 17? It's like, no, I'm 24. It's like, oof, sorry about that. Yeah. But yeah, you can get a lot of good ideas just by going out there, man. Just interacting with people, see what they do, get some stuff back. Like if you pay enough attention, it really does, like, add a lot of fuel to your creative tank.
Sure. Yeah, you bet.
But yes, I suppose we should go back to you there, Josh. What you been doing this week?
I'll do, I may have to. I played Dwarf Fortress this week. Nothing else. I'm working on, I think I have the same fort I talked about last time, although I had to abandon the one that got attacked by a dragon. Yes, you told me how that one had to be done, and you started up a new one. Yeah, so basically recreated kind of the same layout. Like most of the fortress I wanted to build, like, above ground out of wood, which is unusual for Dwarf Fortress, I think.
Not really. I've seen people try and build an entire fortress out of soap. Because you can make soap and that sort of thing, and you can just like keep going. Just, hey, because I can, tends to be the answer for a lot of why did you just want to do this in Dwarf Fortress?
I think it would be very difficult to build an entire fortress out of soap.
That's why they do it, because it was an option and it was challenging and it was difficult.
Yeah.
So,
well, wood is not quite as... Although it was very easy to build, the first layer or so, and then it gets a little bit harder as the trees are further and further
you gotta
away.
wait for them to grow, Prig, if you want the good stuff, yeah.
Yeah. What else did it... So that fort, I got up to about population 144 dwarves at the...
One gross of dwarves.
A gross of dwarves, but then a Hydra came and attacked. I had a couple of different monsters attack, which weren't too bad, but the Hydra was bad.
Which I think is wonderful that the Hydra was bad.
Yeah.
For those who don't know the game, it used to be that the only two ways of really quickly finishing off a foe was to hit it in the brain, like do brain damage to it, which would do an auto kill. And the other option was slicing a major artery, like, say, the neck.
Yeah.
And with the Hydra, in the old way that the combat system worked, it didn't matter how many heads you had, you'd only make one attack, and it would be like with a random body part.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so it would be like, okay, I'm going to attack. It's like head 7. Another attack, it's a claw. Another attack, it's a tail slap or something like that. And so they weren't any more dangerous than any other single creature in the game, but because they had 7 brains and 7 necks, they were much more likely to have a brain, damage, which would cause instant death.
So only one head had to be killed for them to die.
Yeah. And they had 7 times as many necks to sever for major blood splashing.
Okay. But they changed it. So.
Yes. No, I mean, there's still 7 times as many necks. So I guess if you're looking at it as like a pure, like a list of random body parts on a Hydra, it is 7 times more likely than a regular creature that you are going to wind up hitting a neck. But the brain thing will only kill the one head. So that brain thing is out of the equation. And each living head can make an attack.
Okay, yeah.
So, it is now 7 times more lethal. It's like being attacked by 7 creatures at once. And unless you do a quick neck sever and then run away and let it all bleed out, you're still going to be in for one heck of a good fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, it pretty much took out half my dwarves at the time, which is, I could survive it.
That's about 70 dwarves, taken out 72 dwarves.
72, yeah.
So that is about 10 dwarves per head.
Probably, yeah. Seems like a lot, but yeah. I don't know.
Well, mind you, when you look at the size difference, it's like really about like 2 bites per dwarf. So it's like, each head had to bite, a couple hundred times, and that's not bad.
Yeah. I might, So I had a big fight, but then I, got back to building and stuff. So it's, I have a 4-wing design, and it's three above ground stories, one kind of below ground story, and then it's on an aquifer, so can't go any deeper than that one basement. Although I did dig through in the very center of my fort. I dug through the aquifer using the double slit method, which I learned, and I ended up getting down to the stone levels.
The good stuff.
Yeah, so I can do stone things. I can make stone mechanisms, for example.
Which are good, because the only other concept for mechanisms is metal. And it's like, how are you going to get the metal if you can't get to the stone? You kind of got to trade for it, melt it down, and then recast it. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess I could have gone that route. But I did.
It's a lot more laborious and a lot more reliant on traders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else can I say?
Which, how's trading been with your various other nations?
Generally good, yeah. I had my fort is at a barony status.
Very nice, very nice. That means the mountain homes think at least adequately of you.
Yeah, so the dwarven nations are like, yeah, you're a baron. The elves, they're not completely happy with me now because I didn't make the mistake of actually trying to trade them wooden items this time.
Which is very good. That is just the easiest way to stop trading for a while.
Yeah, but they're not happy. The elven diplomat came and said, like, no, you guys are cutting down too many trees, because I was cutting down a lot of trees, because I'm building a fortress out of wood.
Yeah,
so
it would only make sense, right?
Yeah. So yeah, they don't like that I'm doing that.
And what's your perspective on that?
Well, I told them I would, but I don't know if I haven't gone over the cap. Like, they're like, oh, only cut down 110 trees or something like that. And I told them, okay, fine, I'll do what you say. That's the options are like, screw you, or yeah, okay, I'll do what you say. So
not in so many words, but it's, how it easily boils out to.
Yeah. So I did the diplomatic thing, and I said, okay, we'll do what you demand, but I don't know if I'll actually follow through. And then I guess elves will attack if they. I
won't lie. I would like to see a third concept of like some sort of arbor guild, where like if you take out so many trees, you have to pay like the elves a fine.
Yeah. Okay. What would you in goods or in?
It would likely have to be in goods because the dwarven economy is still an absolute no-go at this stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, like definitely have to be so much in value of goods given or taken by the elves.
Yeah. Yeah. That basically, I think that's what's been going on. I have some were shrews in this world, but they're basically under control. Like, I have some infected dwarves, but I walled them off.
And for those listening, a were shrew is actually just about as dangerous as any other were creature out there. They're just happen to have a worse name because you don't hear a shrew and go, oh my god, it's going to kill me. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress, any kind of were creature is dangerous. Like, even if it sounds like a were bunny or something.
I think it's at least partially due to the size. When you turn into a were creature, you are something like double normal human body mass. I'll have to check that up, but I think it's you're just that big, and then you are inherently violent.
Yeah.
So, well, at least that seems right for the shrew. Like a really violent were rabbit just seems like, okay, like, why are you angry? I didn't smack a carrot in front of you. Like, what's going on?
Anything else about Dwarf Fortress that I did? I think that's basically, I've just been working away at that. So
trying to rebuild from disasters.
Yeah, after disaster, and hopefully none are too
it's
bad.
kind of Dwarf Fortress, isn't it? Like, recovery in the face of multiple disasters.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, may I ask you an interesting question here?
Oh, sure, yeah.
If I was to mod Dwarf Fortress and like send it to you, sort of thing, where like elves were more dangerous for whatever reason, and like they actually had things that weren't made out of wood, and thus were more likely to protect them against like metal weapons, or even just like replacing elves with something dangerous like a bear person. Yeah, it's like, forget weapons. I got freaking claws, man. And I set you up for like a concept. Would you play? Like, would you give that a try? For
like a harder version of Dwarf Fortress?
Well, let's like modded for a little bit more, like some differences in there to just throw you off your game. Not like to like make it completely a different game. Just like a little different. It's like instead of just goblins, you'd have like other like things like orcs or like gnolls or other like races to wind up like attacking you. And I don't know, maybe something like a variation on the vampires. Like so you got to worry about like. Some sort of like hidden mummies, sort of thing.
All right. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Although,
okay. So I was thinking, I set up the concept for the map sort of thing. Generate a world. You play a year, I play a year, and we go with a sequential like a dwarven fortress. One person rules for a year.
Probably do. Yeah.
Keep it vanilla though, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it just, whatever you want. That's fine there. But also,
I will have to say there's a few mods I want to put in because I don't think the display pedestal stuff is into the official game yet.
Okay.
And that just allows you to effectively put anything on a block with a glass case over top of it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it's really good for putting artifacts out of the way that way.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'll wind up with like, ooh, look at this masterful like dwarven, mini forge for the kids. And it's like just sitting in a barrel somewhere that no kid ever actually touches. Plus, it works nice for totems or things. Like you get you killed the Hydra, right?
Yeah.
Now you have 7 Hydra skulls. unless you utterly destroy a skull in killing it.
I don't think so, but yeah.
So what you could do is use your like the skull, and then like decorate it up. Like put like bands of metal on there, put some gems and all that, and then you can put it on display so everyone can see your jeweled like skull of your defeated enemies. What do you think of that?
Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe just a little like mods to do a little bit of this and that for
Sure.
Oomph. Okay. Well, I got a little bit of spare time coming on up. I might want to take you up on that offer. We'll see what we can do. See what the two of us can create together.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sure. Why not?
I guess not together, but in sequence.
Yeah. That's about a bit for me. What did you get up to in simulation?
I went into outer space in Minecraft.
Ooh. Using some sort of mod.
Yes, Galacticraft. I gotta say, I put in a few tech mods, and Galacticraft was foremost amongst them. And Galacticraft is good. It's a fairly easy progression, and the website where you download it has a really good wiki to say what you need to do to get this and what this does and what that does, and it even has an entire page just helping you to figure out how to air seal stuff up on the moon so that you can breathe, without needing oxygen equipment. This is quite nice that way. But I find there's some interesting quirks with the machinery. It's always leaking energy. I don't know if that's just mixing my mods together so that it's because I'm using the BuildCraft energy pipes to transmit energy, and it's slowly leaking. It's losing 1 or 2 points of power. So they need to be continuously generating more power to continuously be operable. And then one of the other ones I downloaded was the thermal expansion mod, and I have absolutely fallen in love with the design of their machines there. A little bit more complex, a little harder to get going on, but if you want something to port from one side to another, there's a way to do that, and you can color code everything to figure out what you're doing, or even turn things off and change it without having to pop the whole thing out and then reapply. And so I just found it's very easy nature in that regard to just be absolutely beautiful, because I do love a good efficient design. I guess there's a bit of an engineer in me, and seeing the coding on this must be amazing, because it just all fits together so nice and clean. That said, as I'm going about making my spaceship and getting all the stuff, because I need to, oxygen tanks are a big thing. I need to have a helmet going on there. Although, get this, I can be in space, walking on the moon, with a helmet on my head for space stuff, and then I'm hungry, so I grab some eggs and then I eat the eggs.
Ooh.
It's how did that happen? So I think they might need to work in you can't eat in space unless you've got an oxygen supply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe your helmet has an egg
airlock slot
and a little airlock for food.
That's the thing. It's just an iron helmet with a bunch of glass around it. That's all it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could fashion an airlock out of iron and glass, like a hand-operated food airlock.
That's the thing. It just seems like they just haven't gotten around to doing that part yet, because it's just whoa, wait a minute. Why am I eating an egg in outer space? Because I ran out of steaks.
Well, in Minecraft, you have all this inventory space. Where is it? Well, maybe it's, it's all on your, in pockets and on your body around. So maybe the eggs just happen to be already in the helmet.
So all I had to do is just kind of shimmy them up my spacesuit and nom nom nom, and I'm just trying to eat them, as they try and push them up across my chest.
I feel like that's how astronauts, I guess on spacewalks, long space or, maintenance when they're actually outside in a suit, I don't think they eat, even if they're working for a long time. But they do have a little sippy water thing.
Oh yeah, you got to keep hydrated, man.
Yeah.
That's just common sense.
I think they wait until they get back in the ship.
So there's that. But as I'm going about the whole thing, I'm I spent a lot of time, in the last little while doing my magic mods in the game, getting up and getting good with that, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I think I'm doing quite good, if I do say so myself. I keep looking at the thing. It's like, okay, yeah, make like a something that allows me to like store oxygen in like a compressed canister. I'm like, well, why don't I just utilize like my magic crystals to provide a continuous oxygen source for me? Oh wait, that's right. Nobody's made a mod that bridges these two together yet, or like a magic equivalent of getting into outer space. Because I mean, what you could effectively do is just get a couple new recipes for how to create the thing, and then just effectively make it all reskins of the exact same thing, and then it would wind up just being like, oh yes, and then I used the power of magic to become a space wizard on the moon. Which, like, when I say it out loud, actually sounds kind of awesome. I want to be a space wizard on the moon. Oh, yeah. Which actually reminds me, as soon as I landed on the moon, I was able to find some nodes from the Thaumcraft mod. Like, I was able to see them, and I hop over to one, I look at it, and it's got 3 different types of resources on there. And I found it to be very interesting, because the first one that popped up was water, aqua. And I'm like, there's no water on the moon. Why am I getting, like, water magic energy out of this? The other one was air. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's no air either on the moon. And the third one was death. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of ominous. I just landed on the moon, and all of a sudden I see a symbol of death. But then I figure, if there's a node with air, water, and death, there's no air on the moon, there's no water on the moon, I guess that means I'm not going to die on the moon either. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, although isn't there water, like, in the rims of craters and stuff?
There's some ice in there.
I don't know about the video game version of the moon, but yeah.
Not in the video game version. I've been looking a little bit, and I haven't seen any like ice chunks on there. Mm-hmm. But that matches with the moon. Like if there is like ice there, there's not enough of it to really compensate enough for like a block or even the 1/16th layer like you see with snow. Mm-hmm. So there's not enough to make it a thing. And I'm okay with that, honestly. But I did find that to be like a rather weird thing as soon as I got down on the moon. Like, oh, hey, here's a magical energy node. And I'm like, what? But okay, I guess that's how it works, because that's how I've set up the game to be, right? And that really got me thinking. That's going to wind up actually being the topic of this week's discussion, is when to use magic and when to use technology in your stories and in your fictions. Because, at this point, I can't really use my magic to make a sealable space of air to breathe in outer space. I have to utilize the tech stuff simply because there isn't a mod that'll allow me to make it all happen, which is a bit of a shame.
So is the thought, like, if you're like a kid growing up in a universe, like a fantasy universe, like maybe the Final Fantasy universe, for example, in which you sort of you could go to a magic university, or you could go to sort of a technological institute of some kind. So you have these 2 career paths in front of you, and sort of which one do you choose?
Well, I was thinking you could even work it down to a more basic, like trope type example. For instance, before we started the podcast, I got to show you some of the Wild Wild West TV series, not the movie. And in it, James West has to get knocked out. And so how do they do that? Is they put in some sleeping gas into the area. It is wonderfully colorful to help you see that, oh yes, this is what's going to make you fall asleep now. And that's tech sort of thing. Whereas if you're working in the Wild Wild West as a genre, it's not exactly known for its high-tech abilities, right? The Wild West is
steampunk at best, yeah.
Yeah. The Wild West is itself a more primitive version of a lot of other areas of the world at the time.
Yeah.
Like at the time, the Wild West is happening, you've got people doing some very amazing things in science, but not in the West, more back in the East and in Europe. So, as its innate set for the genre, it is lower tech than would be noted for its own time. And so you could make an argument no one's looking. We've got, some magicians going around here. We've got, magic. You could say the First Nations people have got some magic going on. You could say, settlers, migrants, kicked out, from harassment elsewhere, in the old world, decide to come and have a fresh start in the new world. Did not end well for a lot of the magic users in Salem, apparently, in this sort of a case. Witch trials and all that happening.
Okay.
Say what you. I don't know if there was witches there. I won't say one way or another. I mean, that's up for you and your story to decide whether or not the witches in Salem were actual witches.
Oh, okay. I mean, historically, There's no such thing as witches.
Yeah.
Or I suppose witches are a very specific, like...
subtype of alchemy.
No, like
natural medicines.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe someone would describe an alchemist or what do you call him? Apothecary as a witch.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no such thing as real witchcraft.
The current paradigm for what was going on with the madness in Salem and why people were making such grand claims was due to some contaminated bread. So it was really like people getting a bad, funky high off of some bad bread.
Yeah.
In which case, I mean, you could make a very good argument saying, like, if you did that on purpose, that would very much make you like the medieval equivalent of a witch. You poisoned the bread to cause these horrible hallucinations.
All right. Yeah.
In this day and age, that would just make you, I guess, like a naturalist drug lord? It's like, yeah, man, I'll give you the funkiest highs. You just got to eat 2 loaves of bread.
Sure. Yeah.
Which kind of makes me wonder if that's a thing, like, because cops are always looking, like for like, it's like a kilo of cocaine, man, it's just laced with other drugs. It's worth like $500,000. What cop is going to pull you over and say, like, dude, this bread is illegal. This bread will get you so damn high. Each slice of this bread must be worth $150 on the open market. You never hear that happening.
No, I mean they don't pull people over and search for all the different possible compounds.
Yeah. So is that like
is
that, did I just stumble on like an underground drug ring where they're like smuggling it in like bread compounds?
I doubt not bread, but this is what happened with bath salts, for example, is that for a long time it wasn't widely known, but that was how they transport it. They disguised their drug as bath salts.
One person eats a face and it gets on the national news and everyone knows about bath salts.
Yeah. So I think this is true. This is how drugs are distributed nowadays.
By the way, I'm also going to I'm going to put a pin in this for my future note. Short story, bread drug smugglers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so okay, there we go. It seems like a wacky enough short story. But that's the thing, like for the Salem witch trial in the area for the Wild West, you can see it as either being a natural process of like some contaminated wheat making some bad bread.
Okay.
You can see it as the supernatural, as witches.
Yeah.
Sort of
okay.
thing.
Yeah. So if you're telling that story, like, why would you make that decision? Like, why would you be interested in telling a supernatural story?
Yeah. Maybe the witches actually weren't doing... They were witches there, but they weren't contaminating the wheat for the bad bread. They just wound up getting blamed because, something weird is happening, and these people do weird things. 2 and 2 is 4. Burn them.
Yeah.
So you get, like, innocent witches in that case. Maybe they really were sinister witches, like, for some... I don't know, like, I don't know why they'd be causing funky highs in people. Like, that is always the hard part, is trying to understand why people think other people are evil. Like it's
sure,
yeah.
I remember a quote, or I don't know if it was. I won't be able to quote exactly, but J.R.R. Tolkien used to talk about how he was disappointed with Shakespeare because his, enchanted forest, the supernatural forest, is supposed to be like, marching on its own. I forget what the wood is called. Do you remember?
No, that was in the one with
in Macbeth.
Yeah, Macbeth.
I think. Well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Macbeth.
Not a Midsummer's Night's Dream?
Well, I'm not familiar.
Because that one's got Titania and Oberon in it. Literally the king and queen of fairies.
That's true. Maybe.
And the guy does get his head transformed into a donkey's head there, thanks to some bad fairy magic.
Yeah, so I think Tolkien's...
Or maybe it's just some bad wheat. I don't know.
Tolkien's main, I guess his complaint was about specifically Macbeth because it was the supernatural, but... Not really. It was sort of a Scooby-Doo type deal, like where the woods are moving while.
Did he actually use the word Scooby-Doo?
No.
Oh, that would have been so good.
Scooby-Doo, I don't think overlaps with Tolkien. I don't know when Tolkien died, but I think Scooby-Doo is not a thing, unless he died in the 70s. When was
Scooby-Doo was like 74, 75.
Yeah, maybe he might have been able to see a Scooby-Doo episode.
That's what I was trying to explain for Shakespeare stuff. God, I'm long enough.
But yeah, I guess it's kind of a variant of the rule of cool in that Tolkien thought it wasn't cool that, it was, it's just a plain old natural explanation. He wanted the supernatural. He wanted the trees
you would have much
actually
preferred
walk.
The Tempest then.
Yeah. Like there are Shakespeare plays with more of like sort of magic, or where real magic, I guess, if you want to call it that.
I'd have to double check the Midsummer Night's Dream one to see whether or not it was just like a donkey massacre. For the guy, dude's head literally did turn into a donkey.
And it's possible, like when you put on a production of one of these plays, sometimes you can make a decision of whether does Hamlet's father's ghost, is that a real ghost, or is it just something Hamlet, sort of
or
sees?
Is it Satan tempting him?
Yeah,
as is one of the theories.
Well, yeah. I think that's
a viable theory, as it turns out.
Well, that comes up in the play, doesn't it? At some point, doesn't he say that this might be the devil or something like that? Or,
yeah, but most people at least initially thought that to be poetic. Like, this is the devil, and like this is like some bad stuff going on. And then some what if it really was actually Satan mucking around with Hamlet there? It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, so I think you can interpret it different ways, and when you actually especially with the play, you can put on the play. Which is different from a novel, because a novel is pretty much the same. You read it the same.
Unless you're doing like a movie adaptation, it's pretty much it is as is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. What? Oh, okay. Yeah. So so what? Why would you? I guess it rules.
Because that's the thing. Like you could you write a story about the Salem witch trials and all that, and you could have it be like a sci-fi sort of thing. The Illuminati have created a new mind-altering compound, and they utilize Salem as its petri dish to see the effects of what this funky, dopey high would wind up doing to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, bam, witch trials happen. They're like, a little crude. Maybe we'll refine the formula. So, the whole thing could have a sci-fi explanation for it, like a secret, like a government agency or non-government.
Salem witch trials is like the 1600s, that kind of deal.
Well, the Illuminati, apparently, depending on where you want to do your conspiracy theory, could be anywhere in the last 4,000 years.
Okay, sure.
Easily, sometimes 6,000.
I was thinking it could be the Knights Templar or something like that.
Oh yeah, any your group that you want to control the world. So it could you could wind up to turn like a mystery thing where it winds up, oh no, they're not witches. It's not actually bad bread. It was a compound added into the brain of the flour, by the Knights Templar. Yeah. They wanted the Knights Templar, they wanted to get the people to see witches and start up another thing, because that's where they get their power from, is when everyone's trying to, get a supernatural enemy, then the Templars' power's on the rise, because that's who they're supposed to fight. They will make the enemy, and then they will fight them.
Okay. Yeah.
So, how's that sound?
All right. Yeah, I'm in.
So why would you want to utilize the like that? Because I think that's trying to create a magical opponent, sort of thing, like a supernatural opponent that would make an enemy just to fight them, doesn't really work as well for an easy story. Why were the witches, making people, have funky highs? I have a hard time explaining that one. But, a Knights Templar doing it to create the enemy so that they can fight and gain power. Well, that sounds very easy to accept for a plot.
Yeah, well, I could make up a reason for witches to,
But it doesn't flow quite so easily in this case, does it?
Maybe not. I don't know. Depends. Yeah.
Whereas, for Dungeons and Dragons, technology is always being a secondary sort of thing, added in if you want to bring in Dragonlance's Tinker Gnomes, and otherwise it hasn't really been that much. You want to go into outer space, you need a Spelljammer. You need to power something up with your own stuff there.
Yeah. Well, that's another interesting dichotomy between magic and technology, is that and for some reason they don't seem to cross too much, but you mentioned this with your Minecraft mods, is that you can either visit planets sort of physically by traveling across the stars and here's another planet, another solar system, or you can do the whole dimensional hopping and the multiple worlds kind of deal. Where
I will effectively create the world of my desire to go to.
Yeah, although it could be just infinite worlds type of there are infinite material planes. Just teleport to another material plane that happens to exist and have its own history and This is sort of D&D explained why every DM can have his own world is because they can all be sort of linked, and like you make your own world and design the continents and the politics and everything like that, but then you also sort of connect to other D&D worlds.
That's why they have spells that begin with tensors and evard in all the places. It's just like, well, like a traveling wizard taught it to someone else, and the name stuck around because that was the name when they started learning it.
And I feel like magic is really good for that because it can create, like with space travel, I guess, and in some ways we don't know what we'll encounter on other planets, but you often encounter planets that are too different to really relate to. Like even Mars and Venus are hard to set adventures on because
Venus is perhaps the least hospitable place in the solar system.
Yeah.
It is just too much energy in a too little area. You are literally better off spending your energy going to Mars and dealing with the cold as opposed to the too much heat.
Yeah, and Mars has its own set of problems. But yeah, ideally, like the best sort of stories can be told on sort of an Earth-like planet where we can all understand like what the challenges are, and it's easy to convey to a reader what Earth is like. So in that case, magic is good because it gives you access to all these Earth-like material planes. Whereas, sci-fi is a bit harder to deal with, although also more interesting in a lot of ways because you can have these really alien environments, and like how do you deal with that?
And that's the thing, like the one bit I dislike about Mistcraft is that you can design a bad age through just random chance or forgetting to clear your modifiers at the end, and coming up with a world that was like poisoning you. Like I've gone to places where the sun burns you as soon as you're like exposed to the sun. Bam, you are on fire. And other areas where the very air itself was toxic to breathe. Both very real concerns for space travel, sort of thing like getting too much solar radiation on you and non-oxygen based things.
Yeah.
But Galacticraft it beats out in this regard because, like, dude, there's no air in space. You are dying unless you have a proper setup. Get yourself that air mask on, get yourself the breather, get yourself some, tanks of oxygen. And then you won't be slowly dying from a lack of air. But there is nothing made for Mistcraft where it's like, oh, the air is poisonous unless you have the oxygen set up so that you can breathe your fresh native, air. And so it would be nice to try and merge those two together, despite the fact one being, tech and one being, mystic, to make it so that it's like, oh boy, I'm going to venture to a new, a prime material plane, and oh, there we go. I don't have to worry about dying for this lethal, toxic green haze of an air.
Yeah.
It would be nice to make a mod that would branch over on that one, but I don't know how much I'd need to learn before that would be even a viable possibility for me.
Here's a question I'm just popped in my head. I'm curious about.
Oh, sure thing, yeah.
But have you? There are probably only a handful of examples of like sci-fi fantasy, like of let's say films. I guess Event Horizon might comes to mind.
Event Horizon is a great example of them, yeah.
Yeah, you have a fantasy environment or something magic or something like that, but you have sort of high-tech humans, maybe with spacesuits, hazmat suits, something. I think Stranger Things had that kind of feel to it.
Spoiler alert! Still need to watch it.
Okay, I won't tell you anything else about it, but yeah. So it's this combination of a very supernatural thing with technological humans going into it and sort of using their tech to try and overcome.
It does work as a nice motif. Like, what does Supernatural have? All this crazy stuff. What does humanity have? We've got technology and firearms.
Yeah.
One of the things I do dig about the Secret World is they got a lot of vampires in the, I guess, the third act sort of thing. When you get to Transylvania, there's vampires. The vampires are like literally being, made, and to be an army to invade. And like, well, how are they not burning up in the sun? They're wearing a bunch of clothes over themselves. They got goggles on there, and they're making sure that there's nothing exposed to direct sunlight.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
No.
Is a wardrobe change.
Yeah.
And congratulations, you're pretty much viable as a combatant. Although it would be kind of nice to have like an option of like a critical hit knocking off some clothing and just starts taking a lot of damage as it burns.
Do you have any other examples of,
well,
especially film?
The biggest example, I believe, would have to be Star Wars.
Okay, yeah.
Because, I mean, as much high-tech as... I mean, even the supernatural guys, you know, I've got their tech. I mean, the lightsaber is not mystical. The lightsaber is, like, apparently plasma in a force-contained area. Or, sorry, not, again, force field.
Well, it's kind of hand-wavy, but it is sort of portrayed as technology.
Yeah, it's like, you don't need to be, you know, like a Jedi or a Sith to use it. You just need to know where the on button is and just watch yourself so you don't blow a hole in your head as you're looking down the barrel.
Yeah.
Right?
Although some Jedi will put the on button sort of inside the mechanism, so you would have to use the Force to turn it on.
Which is a very smart idea.
Probably.
It's a very dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
It's like OSHA. I mean, I bet you people working at OSHA have just nightmares about stuff like lightsabers. It's horrible.
Although I wonder if you can set a lightsaber to stun.
No, it's effectively plasma. You're kind of hitting somebody with like a tiny shard of the sun.
But was it Family Guy that had the lightsabers that were actually just batons?
No, that was Futurama.
Oh, Futurama.
Yeah, where they're just basically a force field. Dong, 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 dong.
Yeah.
It's just better storage that way. Now, admittedly, it's a good concept. There are things you could do with like a pre-programmed thing to create some like a, I guess, solid light or some force field. So you could just like have a scaffolding go up in a moment that way.
Yeah, or just basically create any tool at, you know.
Or even, I mean, just work it as a basic solid plane. Like, oh my goodness, like this building's going to collapse due to, you know, like a. I mean, heck, like at the beginning of every episode of Futurama, they wind up crashing into the like the sign. Right?
Oh yeah.
So like, what happens if that sign starts falling over? Well, you just get yourself up, you know, like a nice force plane to put up on that one, and then instead of falling on the people underneath, it's effectively protected.
I wonder how much. Now I wonder how much like power that would use up. It's like an entire nuclear like power plant just to power that one little, you know, prop up a.
What's the thing? I mean, if it's like effectively battery operated for the like the light batons that they have, maybe not an entire power generator. But I'm thinking like maybe you should turn your lights off when they declare an emergency in the Futurama universe, just to help keep everything in place so nothing collapses.
I guess in comic books it happens a lot more. Is in that. Star Wars is a good example, although it's not.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's that in Star Wars, no matter how much tech they have, there's always that the Force is going on there, sort of thing. So, like, as much as it could have been just another sci-fi only thing, I don't think you can tell a Star Wars story without some mysticism being involved about the Force.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Otherwise, like, what universe are you really in? As opposed to Star Trek, where no matter how supernatural things seem, there's always a technobabble explanation for how it fits in with the natural universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The most powerful example, the biggest example being, the Q, or the Q continuum.
But even then, things get hand-waved as just really good, like, energy manipulators.
They evolved to that point. Like, they used to be... Like, didn't they mention something like the Q used to be a normal...
Yeah. Way back in the day, and then they became more... So, like, the way I've always pictured it is you've got your human-type races, then you've got your energy being-type races, where it's like, and then we ascended and became a race of energy beings. And then the energy beings wind up ascending to, like, Q status at some point. Yeah.
Although we've seen that the Q can actually travel back and forth through time, so maybe the Q are just, you know, the end result of humanity or something like that.
That would be an interesting twist.
Or another, maybe Vulcans or Klingons or even Ferengi.
Or maybe, I mean, because let's face it, this is enough time throughout, you know, like the lifespan of the universe to get the Q so that they can go back and forth whenever they want.
Yeah.
It could be all of them. I mean, they are incredibly easily interbreedable in the Star Trek universe. There's where your weird, like, sci-fi thing comes in. Like, how are all these things, like, reproducible? And then I guess they had some races are interconnectable through the one race that seeded the galaxy once upon a time, but even that one doesn't explain everything. So yeah, like it could be like you get enough miscibility over the generations, you get whatever the Klingo-Vulco humans come into in the end, and then they like ascend and to energy being ascend up after that to Q status.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know if that's an official explanation. That's just how I always kind of interpret it. Because when you look at your scale of power, humans, energy beings, and then Q drops them, because most of the energy beings don't go back and forth through time.
Well, that's a theory. Trying to think of another example of like, I guess horror. Like, well, Stranger Things is a good example. Like
Lovecraft is a good example because everything that happens for technology in Lovecraft is not rendered inviolable in the face of supernatural. Like, no matter how horrible Cthulhu is when he raises up, his mile-high form and his very, visage causes like 2 out of 6 people, I think, to die of fright immediately, that gun you've got on you will still work. Not effectively, but it still works. It just does sound like, oh no, why is it the gun not firing? And like, oh, I guess sulfur doesn't operate the same way anymore. Or gunpowder doesn't, combust as it did. It's just inert now. It's like, no, that's all still completely viable, at least as well as can be expected.
Here's an example. Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, that was a very interesting one. I still have a hard time, thinking as to where the supernatural ended and the tech began on the whole thing.
Right. Because I think all the monsters were actual monsters. They're often supernatural.
I know they would have to be because I remember watching the commentary with Joss Whedon, but not the full commentary, just the making of. Yeah. Apparently, he and the other guy they rented like a hotel suite for a weekend just don't be typing out like crazy. No distractions. Don't do this at home because people will come knocking at your home. Don't do this in an office because there'll be people distracting you in the office. So apparently that's what you do when you're big enough. You rent an entire hotel suite and then you just get to typing because you need food. They can send it up for you. That way you are effectively sequestered in your idea room. And Joss Whedon was talking about how he's typing the one scene and the other guy's typing the other, and the other guy yells to him like, "Hey, do the agent's bullets work against the werewolf?" And he's like, "No, they're not silver. They wouldn't work at all." That's a good one. I was just thinking about that. So they are, at least from that point, I had to assume that yes, all the supernatural creatures are supernatural. Like werewolves do need silver bullets. Although why the agents didn't have silver bullets was an interesting question that nobody ever asked.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows, if I'm in a facility where there's a werewolf, even under containment, I am going to requisition myself silver bullets all the time. I'm going to make good friends with the quartermaster, so he can give me the silver bullets. If there's only a few silver bullets, I want them.
Yeah.
Forget the other guys. I want those silver bullets because I'm thinking ahead. I'm the one playing the paranoid game, and maybe I won't want to say, and maybe I'm the one that survives, because, the ending of Cabin in the Wood kind of indicates nobody survives at all. So, yeah, there's that thing to consider there. But, yes, I do believe all the creatures were that were supernatural were completely supernatural, provided by the forces that be.
Okay, yeah. So that's
how some of them were kept, fed and properly in stasis is an interesting question.
Yeah.
So they might not have been. They might have been so supernatural that they don't even have a proper basis. You can't even say oh yes, it's a werewolf, so we need to feed it, a couple slabs of meat, a day to make sure it, keeps up on that one. And why does it not get fat and lethargic and out of shape in its tiny little cell? It's no. This is a beast of terror created by the forces that be. It only exists to cause and spread terror. It is literally a bioterrorist object.
Yeah.
In some cases, not even bio, and a spiritual things. Although how they were able to keep the spirits locked up in those things when they can go through all the other stuff was weird.
Yeah, it's good questions.
Because Lord knows, if I'm in a facility that's housing ghosts, I want ghost-proof walls. Floors, ceilings,
Ghostbusters. Although,
that was
tech
another
versus
one
supernatural.
That was another one I was going to wind up bringing up there. That apparently was not the original design. The original plan, as it has been told to me through various sources.
Secret sources.
Not secret sources, just people saying oh, this is how the movie came to be.
Okay.
Dan Aykroyd's original one was they actually had wands. That's why they call it a neutrino wand in the end.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. They actually had wands to capture the ghosts and all that stuff. So they weren't the only ones. They were just one of many different competing organizations fighting for dominance in the supernatural elimination and investigation.
Right.
Services.
Now, I wanted to ask another question. There is a...
but here's the thing, though.
Okay,
you can ask the question a bit, because that's the reason why they didn't have like just wands and they were wizards and it became like tech was because when they were like revising the script, sort of thing. I don't know who said that, but they want to make it a little bit more relatable, more understandable to the common person. Because like if it's just like, oh yeah, we're 4 guys with magic wands busting ghosts. They said like people aren't going to like get into it. They're not going to buy the premise as easily as if like, dude, I have a nuclear particle accelerator strapped on my back and I shoot streams of energy to blow the heck out of a ghost and then put him in a trap. Mm-hmm. Apparently, it's more believable with the technology, at least within like a contemporary setting.
Well, I just like the aesthetic of the sort of industrial look of this like huge trap that's like heavy, and you got these heavy things, and you've got like jumpsuits, and I just
apparently
like that
those
look. Packs
were pretty darn heavy in real life too. They had a lighter set for when they were doing some stuff, but like the epical stuff, it was heavy.
Yeah.
So that industrial look came at a cost.
Sure. Well,
a lot of sore backs.
Fine with me.
Do you know how many back massages?
I'm willing to pay that cost.
Do you know how many back massages Bill Murray had to get for that movie?
Nope.
I don't know either. But if it's heavy, I hope he got at least a good couple feuds to help relax him at the end of the day. They deserve it. They did good work on it. All right, Bass, your question.
Some people say that they actually don't like these flavors to mix. Do you think there's a logic behind that, or like why you wouldn't want like both in the same world, like why you would have to pick between either magic or technology, or supernatural or technology?
I think at least from what I'm able to cobble together from what I've heard from other people and what I've imagined myself, tech has boundaries. If you were watching a series and someone says, "Oh, we can't," like you say in Star Trek, we can't do that. We need to bypass the reeler adapter rays and other technobabble answers. Then it shows that like tech can't do everything. You can't just have like, oh, I will put this and it does, like this one, MacGuffin device does everything. This MacGuffin device pops off. This MacGuffin device makes this guy unconscious. This MacGuffin device, winds up teleporting me back to my ship. Whereas magic is almost considered cheat. You're cheating things to get it to happen. Mind you, that's not all the case. Full Metal Alchemist had an entire series where their magic had a price. You couldn't cheat your way into getting something for nothing. It always had a cost.
Yeah.
And so,
as we talked in the last iteration of the show,
it's a very good way of keeping the style of tech for saying like you can't do everything, while still having the infinite possibilities of the magical style.
Yeah.
So there is that.
I will say also.
That said, I'm okay with merging them myself.
You're okay with that? Yeah. I think if you have a good story, good writing, I think you're like Cabin in the Woods. Yeah. I'm fine with it.
Well, it would make sense, sort of thing, like if magic exists, to find some way to industrially exploit it. Which I think XKCD did a point on this. The best evidence that the supernatural doesn't exist is that soulless corporations haven't tried to use it and abuse it the way they've done with everything else they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
You can bet if they could read somebody's mind and put thoughts into your mind, you would be buying their product, because they would have 1,000 people, trying to put thoughts of buy our product into their minds.
Mm-hmm. I have
and not advertising agency way, but yeah.
On why they often don't mix, and that is I'll use Harry Potter as the example, is because a lot of the sort of the spells and stuff in Harry Potter is like sort of almost techno-like. Like there's an invisibility cloak. It has one function. It does invisibility. Like it's not gonna, it's not this magic thing that's just gonna do anything willy-nilly. No, this is a specific piece of magical technology. Wands are a bit more, they're a conduit for the wizard's own personal magic, so that's the thing. But a lot of times there's doodads and things in the Harry Potter world that do one thing. So they're I feel like
there's very powerful things like, this one will let Hermione go back in time so she can attend all the classes she wants.
Yeah. But I feel like in Harry Potter often the magical tools and devices are sort of metaphors for technology in a way.
So do guns still work in the Wizarding universe? Do they have
yeah,
various
I would assume they work because it's other physical properties still happen. And
I'm just wondering if it's not like considered common practice. Like, okay, well, I'm going to build a school of wizardry, so I'm going to make certain that firearms don't fire here, so that way no one can be packing heat. If you want to kill somebody, you got to do it through curses and other things.
Well,
like that.
I believe this question has been asked about the Harry Potter universe. Is like, why don't we see guns and other?
Why ain't Harry packing heat?
Yeah, and I think sometimes
dirty Harry Potter. Got to ask yourself, did I fire 5 magical shots or 6? Question is, I can't remember either. And all the commotion. You feel lucky? Do you, punk?
The most common, or I think the explanation that I've heard the most is that sort of magic has sort of it's its own culture and it's sort of stagnated in a way, but they're also, because we have magic, we don't need to worry about things like.
Well, they definitely don't have the social progress of the last 100 years. I'll say that.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean, goblins will do their banking for them, but they don't count as human, right? And they don't have all human rights because.
Well,
they're doing better than others because they have some clout on that. But I mean, like what centaurs qualify as just like partial humans. They're effectively registered as like like not quite human but not quite beast. It's
I mean, they're doing well enough like with racial stuff and with boys and girls being generally equal.
Okay, they've got gender equality, but and they seem to be doing okay between the human races. But they don't seem to have much sympathy for anything that's like a goblin or a centaur. I think there's even some issues with giants.
Mm-hmm.
As to and all that stuff. So it's like, damn, man.
Yeah.
You wizards are a bunch of pricks.
And it's like the Star Trek thing of Star Trek is just another way of telling stories that we couldn't otherwise tell about who we are. Yes,
well, the one with the race of the people, one with white on the one side and black on the other.
That's the one.
That was like an allegory for like a racial, miscibility and like what racism was. And they couldn't tell a story like, oh, there's a black person versus a white person. It was like, that means nothing, because that was back in an era where apparently it meant a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yeah, so they
came up with a sci-fi race. It's like, oh, I can't tell the difference because this is a ridiculous difference in change. And it's like, how can you not tell? Look, he's white on the right side and black on the left. Not the right way. He's got the wrong skin tones. And be like, they were allowed that wouldn't, like, if you just did like a standard racial thing, like, oh, he's black, he's white, I can't tell the difference, sort of thing. That's either parody or like there's no way it would make it through the censors of that day and age. So it's a nice way of passing the censors in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. So if your goal is to tell a story that sort of has this moral twist to it, you might only need one of the tools. You might only need either, make it either sci-fi or make it a magical universe. You don't necessarily need to mash the two together.
So sci-fi for things that are more real, whereas if you need to tell something a lot more controversial, you might be better off going with magic in that case.
I think you could use either one. I think my only point was that you wouldn't necessarily use both because you'll need one of those tools. Because Arthur C. Clarke says they're indistinguishable at some point.
Well, it depends how advanced it is. Like, what if it's not too advanced magic? What if it's not too advanced tech?
Yeah, I guess if they're not that advanced, then sure.
It's around I'm going to say around the level of the gray goo quality for what you can do with things. It's effectively indistinguishable.
Okay, yeah.
Mostly because gray goo is itself doesn't have a good power source. I hate to say it, but it has been shown down at the level of the microorganism stage of things, you really can't get much better for energy efficiency than what currently exists biologically.
Yeah,
so if you have
has done a pretty good job. Yeah,
it is ruthlessly efficient. If you are not good enough, you are extinct. So, it's done very well. So if there was gray goo in an environment, it would have to compete against natural, creatures, and it would not just like all of a sudden it just like oozes out like exponentially. It's like, no, where are you getting the energy to do all this stuff? It's so much better, so it does seem to be magical, at least in that regard, when people don't think about like, how are you fueling this? May as well be magic.
Well, the way I would modify the Arthur C. Clarke quote is that basically there's a veil. The less you know or about a technology or magic, the more it seems like they could be either. Like if you are behind this veil, or if it's in a black box kind of deal. Like
so that's what makes Star Trek so much more like tech based as opposed to magic. Is they sometimes almost endless stream of technobabble of what they have to say. Like, oh, I can't do this for you right away because technobabble insertion here.
Yeah, and they use kind of sort of concepts like a warping space-time, which is sort of theoretical, like it comes from physics.
Hey, they are working on stuff like that.
Exactly.
And NASA does have some interesting, very good designs for a spaceship to utilize a warp drive. And
yeah, so these seeds are there.
By the way, current design, if the stuff works, and right now the math looks like it's not being, like against what we know to be true, we could get ourselves to Alpha Centauri, system Alpha Proxima, and all that stuff in about 2 weeks.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you know how much that would change, though, like the concept of a reality for us? That's the peer-reviewed thing for that crazy steampunk engine that they managed to get some sort of thrust on it through just electrical current.
Mm-hmm.
It was released. So I actually don't hold out high stuff on that. From what I've been told, the margin of error is larger than the thrust generated, so it could just be bad instrumentation and all that.
Oh, sure. Okay.
But if it does work, that means we could have effectively like steampunk level technology generating spatial thrust.
Spatial thrust.
Spatial thrust, yeah. It's like, I mean, you still got to get up there. You still once you can ignore gravity, then that thrust really gets good. But once again, we find ourselves slaves to the horrible master that is gravity that keeps us exactly where we always are. I actually prefer it to the alternative. The concept of not having reliable gravity just scares the hell out of me.
We did science or magic versus.
But I gotta say, as it comes down to, I'm really liking the concept that you use magic to tell the more controversial stories. Because you can get away with a lot more with magic. How could this possibly be? Magic. Oh, okay. What kind of magic? This kind of magic. Oh, well, fair enough. You got an answer for that. That's magic. I'll buy it. Otherwise, where's the energy coming from for the energy for all the spells that Harry Potter's casting? What is the mechanism that provides the force blast that knock people across the room? No explanation given. It's magic. You don't need to.
And I guess the other metaphor in Harry Potter is often magic is a bit like technology in that there's sort of lessons about use it prudently, or sometimes it'll be dangerous to use it too much. You are
telling this to a person that has literally worn out a battery by licking it on his tongue often enough. And just thinking about that, I get that feeling on my tongue when you do that.
Hermione overuses the time device thingy, or it becomes it's like access to a tool that you use too much, and
hey, when all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
So there's some I don't know how to call them morals, but there's ideas, themes about how we should use technology that are expressed by magic, like in a magic setting, like. There's parallels, I guess, is what I'm saying.
So you can get away with some other stories based that way.
Yeah, but you make a good point. Like if you wanted something, like if you just have a point to make, and you want to just use whatever tool is easiest to get to the fastest to that point, sometimes it might be easier just to say, okay, it's magic. Like there's a wizard, and I'm telling this story, but I need this thing to happen, so a wizard does it.
It does, help get you to the core of the story. Like, if you want to espouse the opinion that eating meat is murder, some people believe it. Some people, they don't hold it in the same regards. You could do a thing where you're like, oh yes, we've been doing CAT scans on various animals, and we can definitely show that they possess the quality levels of intelligence required for us to deem them on par with humanity. Versus and then you wind up becoming a pig because you get transformed and you can understand pig and you understand just exactly how smart and sweet and intelligent they are, and thus every time you've eaten bacon was the same as if you would have been partaking of cannibalism. Blah. So, I mean, you could use both methods to tell, like, a controversial story if we'll say meat is murder.
Mm-hmm.
But I think magic in this one gets more to the essence of the story because it's much more emotion-based in this one. So you could work it along the lines that technology is best used when you want to tell a more objective story. Magic is better used when you want to tell a more personal or emotional-based story.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be a good explanation for when to go with it?
I do like that. I also want to add that magic is sometimes a little bit. Let me see. It's when you talk about things like souls or essences or stuff like that, you're sort of talking about code for a little bit more complicated stuff that happens in reality. Like what is does an animal have a soul? In a magical universe, that's a question you could ask.
Let me just cast the spell to see souls.
Yeah.
Oh, they all do, but that one pig does not. I recommend taking him apart from the pig population until we can figure out why that pig lacks a soul. The others do, though. So, like.
And then in our real universe, we have to interpret, like, what does a soul mean? Does it mean like they have this, and this capacity? And
there are philosophers still having very heated debates as to what qualifies as a soul under objective criteria.
Yeah, just in terms of like sort of culturally, what do we think of as like a being that deserves existence or something like that?
I will admit, I do like some of the religious beliefs of other religions that state that you don't have a soul, you have soul. And the better off you are on some things, the more soul you can have. So it's not just a single discrete quantity, one soul per human. If you are a really awesome person, you could have like 10,000 units of soul. Yeah. Be like, dude, I am the soul man. I am the Lord of Soul. Look how much soul I have because I am the most human you can ever meet.
Yeah, and if you have magic, like you don't necessarily have to untangle all of that. You can just say, well, it's just a given. It's a hand wave. I'm literally waving my hand right now.
Fair enough.
But in science fiction world, it might not be satisfying to just say, well, they have souls. Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I was just saying they have souls. You still got to ask, what does that even mean?
One last question, I think, before we
we wrap it on.
I wanted to ask is, which is better? Which makes makes better stories? Which is a cooler thing, magic or technology? Which do you like better?
I've been playing them both on the game. For me, the Minecraft, and I have to say, this is a pretty tough one.
I know it's a stupid question. You could.
No, what's the thing though? So it's like for me, it really does come down to such a fine point that because like the stuff from Galacticraft, I find to be a little annoying. How they have a constant power leak going out on them. So it's like, why are you doing that? Meanwhile, I look over to the wonderfully well crafted, thermal expansion stuff. It's like, ooh, the elegance. I love it. It's shining like a diamond in my mind. And then I look over at some of the magic type stuff, and it's like, I have no idea. Like, I was looking up, blood magic, just to see, maybe I'll add that mod in while I'm adding mods, to see how it goes. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't really know what it would even take to begin. Whereas with Thalmcraft, it was like, here is how you build your first wand. Some nuggets of, iron and a stick. And that provides you with your very first wand. Now tap that stick on a block of bookshelves, and that's how you create a Thalmonomicon. And from there, it will teach you the rest.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I like, and that's one thing I gotta say, has been bugging me about a lot of the mods, is there is no source of where do you get this in the game. You basically have to either use the mod that shows you all the recipes for everything. Was it Not Enough Items, NEI? Or the alt tabbing out to a wiki for it. And I gotta say, not all the wikis are up to date. There's a lot of old Buildcraft information stuff about things that no longer apply or are valid, and I gotta double check to make certain I'm using the right recipe for some of the thermal expansion things. So, a proper documentation apparently adds a lot for ability to me.
Sure. Yeah.
But that said, I mean, the magic stuff does come with the downside of gaining warp. I have gone wiki on the wacky woo with some of this dark magic I've gone into. It's getting pretty bad. So I was like, ooh, it's a very fine thing. So like a very well-made magic mod, I'll have to say, versus a very well-made tech mod. I like them both, but I can't make a decision on that one. It's like, which child do I love more? I can't.
Okay.
Decide, yeah.
Well, I was thinking, like, personally, in terms of sort of like Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of fantasy world, versus like, you know, your Star Treks.
In that case, I can make a decision for it. Is I've decided, you know, like, oh, well, why don't I just try and, you know, make like a little, like, I'll use the tri-stat system to make a world to effectively play with my mind, and when I get some, you know, spare mind time, like, what would I do?
Sure. Yeah.
And it was a space-based one with, you know, like engines, you know, and like hyperdrives, or I don't want to call them hyperdrives though, but, you know, effectively faster than light transports.
FDLs, yep. Got it.
And as such, you know, as like it wound up being like, okay, there will be some supernatural stuff going on, but it is, you know, like largely, you know, based around tech sort of thing. So I think from that perspective, what do I make for myself when I have the opportunity to make a world from scratch? My preference is over on tech. Major tech with a minor in magic.
Okay. Because I think I lean towards the fantasy edge of things. Maybe more because, like, maybe it's not fantasy that I like. Maybe it's the low-tech world. Actually, maybe that's my favorite, is the world where there are not... You can
still have something like that. I mean, wasn't John Carter of Mars not exactly as high-tech as what we have right now in our day and age?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So you can still tell, like, a space adventure sort of thing and keep it low-tech. Or at least, you know, like hide like the technology behind a veil of like nobody knows how to make it anymore. It was the lost technology.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I lean towards fantasy, and I like a little bit of magic. I do like a little bit of tech because I enjoy, like, it's just cool. Guns are just cool. So I like a little bit of both. But I will say
I do prefer magic more when it's not a specific class applied in there. It does seem to, like, can you imagine that if you could have a technology-based sort of thing where it's like you can only utilize an elevator if you are the right class? Yeah. It doesn't seem rather fun. Like, oh, I can't fire this gun. I'm a rogue.
Yeah.
What do you think I am, a sorcerer? Come on, it's a gun.
Well, rogues would have used magic device. If it's
which case they're fiddling around with a gun. That's dangerous, man. Yeah. It's dangerous, I guess, as a rogue mucking around with a wand they don't know how to use.
Yeah.
So if I could snag the magic from the Call of Cthulhu D20 stuff, where anyone can effectively learn it, but it might cost you some time and some effort, and apply that as tech-based things, like if you want to learn how to utilize a hyperdrive, you have to spend the time to figure out how a hyperdrive works, and how it works with your engine, you know, systems and all that, and how to hook it up. And that way, I think, would make for the best of both worlds.
Yeah, probably. Okay. But of course, yeah, and
because that is the other difference between magic and technology. Magic tends to be isolationist and elitist, whereas technology is available for everyone. I don't have to know how to make a gun to fire a gun. I don't have to make a remote control to turn on my TV.
But depending on the setting, there might be gun laws, and you might not be able to purchase a gun.
I could still go down to like the shooting range, you know, and like rent a gun and learn how to aim properly.
Well, I mean, saying depending on the setting, maybe that's not a thing. Like we're talking, wildly variant.
But it's a lot easier. You don't have to, you know, be behind like, oh, I spent 30 years studying technology. Let me turn on the TV for you. So yeah, technology is a lot more for everybody. Yeah. Whether or not you have access to it, whether or not you know how to use it, is another matter. But you can always try to use it. Magic is like you're a muggle. You can't cast magic. You're not one of us. It's like a very elitist style. Like if you're not born that way, you will never be that way. You poor, pitiful thing.
I mean, it may depend on the setting. Some settings will have easier access to magic.
Like the Call of Cthulhu. It'll cost you, but, you know, you can do it. Anybody can learn the magic, which is why I like that. And that's why I had to state that. It's like, if I could do that, then yeah. Although I must admit, like the concept of learning how to use technology and not having to have like slots, like for proficiencies, just making sure you spend the time and just make a note, like I've got hyper drive like knowledge, I learned it. Mm-hmm. So every time I need to do that, like I just relied on that one. Yeah. The same as if it were a spell. Fix hyperdrive, because I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, hey, don't get me wrong. I mean, like you blend the two of them together, like a magic spell to fix a hyperdrive. That's utilitarian magic right there.
Yeah, I like it. We about done.
I think we're about done. Okay. So yes, what is your ultimate takeaway from all this?
I don't know if I have one. I don't know if we came to a conclusion. I guess we sort of said that we like them both.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I think I
like them mixed sometimes.
I think from the stuff we've put out there, from where this one works better than where the other one is, technology is impersonal. Technology doesn't care. It's not about the emotions. Magic is almost all about the emotions.
I can think of exceptions, but yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing: it's like like the gun doesn't care if you're happy, angry, sad, or just like whatever. It will let you fire. But over in like the Harry Potter world, you want to cast some of those like heavy magics, like protect yourself. You got to have that good thought in you. So the magic is more inherently an emotional story than the technology.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ultimate criteria of how you want to go about it. Do you want to tell an emotional story, or do you want to tell like a more impersonal story?
I like that, yeah.
So like if the world you're telling like is like a world that cares, like a world that where like it like your emotions actually help determine like anything, magic is a probably good way of going about it. If you want to tell a world where your emotions don't matter at all.
Well, and things like facts and science and evidence is more important.
Then in which case, technology is probably the better way of going about it. Which is not to say you can't invert that.
I'd say, you can do both.
Lovecraft says that, in his Lovecraftery, that it doesn't matter. Your emotions don't matter. Your thoughts don't matter. Humanity is an insignificant, gnat in the cosmic importance level of things. Mm-hmm. And all these other creatures here have magical powers. So it's a weird, crazy. Although I suppose you could make an argument that it's not actually an impersonal magic for Lovecraft, it's an anti-humanity magic. It's just antithetical to our perception of reality.
Or maybe humans are antithetical to what reality actually is.
The only reason humanity exists is because the laws of physics only hold sway in this time, in this particular area of the galaxy. Which is why you have creatures that can fly through space on wings. The etheric concept of space actually exists elsewhere in space. Not here, not right now, but it used to, and it will again. And so the only reason why we are what we are is because we're in this weird, crazy, like, things aren't normally like this sort of bit. Mm-hmm. And, welcome to Lovecraft's, Yog-Sothory.
Yeah.
It's kind of depressing, but very interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a good ultimate explanation as to when would be best suited for that.
Yeah.
Tech versus magic.
Well, at least nuggets, ideas. You can always, forge your own path or try something different.
As I said, you got to make your story your own. Yeah. So, only take our stuff as a nice little guideline. If you want to go out of bounds, you're fine with doing that. But just remember, ski season, tells us that every year someone goes out of bounds and they lose their life on that. So if you wind up ruining your story because you went out of bounds, we warned you.
Well, you can send us your stories.
Yeah. I'd love to. I'd love to read the stories you guys come up with based on our ideas.
Yeah, thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist.
What if they only have just an idea, like, hey, your guys' concepts, gave me a great idea. What if you told a story based on this idea? Then they could tell it on a short thing, so that would be an easy comment on Facebook. Or what if it came out to less than 140 characters for their idea?
Oh well, there's this site that that exists. This new site just came up. Twitter. I'm on Twitter @Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN. is my Twitter handle.
I've never heard of this before. I might have to get in on it on the ground floor.
Well, you probably should. I should tweet more myself. I don't tweet that much. But if you do tweet at me, I will get a notification, and I will maybe, I don't know, tweet back. I'll probably follow you. That's because I'm not following that many people.
Josh is a friendly guy that way. That's how it goes.
Yeah, follow you on Twitter. Friend us on Facebook. And tell other people about this podcast. We want to, expand a little bit and grow. So let other people know.
So if you've got that one guy, in your like sci-fi campaign that's always trying to bring in magic, link them this episode, sort of thing, man. It's just let them know about the 219 iteration, and maybe we can help him like understand as to why maybe he shouldn't be trying to bring magic in all the time, but maybe it's just not appropriate to the style of the story that wants to be told.
Yep.
On the other hand, if you're the guy who's always trying to bring magic into a technological story and you want to help explain to your friends as to why, because, hey, I want to tell a really emotional story that just happens to take place in space. Can we have some magic in there? Link them this iteration so that they can understand where you're coming from. It's like, dude, I want to tell a very personal, like emotional-based story that I don't think the technology will really allow for.
All right, yeah.
So we work both ways that way. We're awesome.
That's right. Yeah. We covered both sides of the issue.
Yeah.
I guess.
Very happily.
And what else? Oh, Patreon. Patreon.com/TheSimulationist is where you can pay us for this. You don't have to. Obviously, this is totally free and voluntary. But, hey, we'd sure appreciate, it helps us, psychologically, if somebody were to throw us $1 here or there, it would be like, oh, this is worth it.
Somebody thinks our words have actual objective monetary value.
But I'm not pushing for too hard for that, but it would be nice. So yeah, check out the patreon.com/thesimulationist.
It's like quantified love if you do send it, though. Think about it.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's about it. And we already did final thoughts.
Yeah.
I guess. So I guess we're done.
Yeah,
I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
And